Welcome to Total Wine and More. It's much more than a wine store. It's the eighth wonder of the world.
When people talk about Total Wine and More, they get a little carried away. We're just a big, friendly place run by people with a passion for wine, beer, and spirits.
8,000 different wines, 2,500 different beers, 3,000 spirits, and friendly, helpful experts at every turn.
You know what? Maybe we are the eighth wonder of the world.
Shop in store or online at TotalWine.com.
Blog Talk Radio.
And good morning, Mike. I figured I'd hit you with a little glass breaking, a little Stone Cold Steve Austin to kick off this wonderful 316 day in honor of Austin's 316. And I know, like me, you are a wrestling aficionado, so I know you would appreciate it. And to everyone out there listening, I just want to say welcome to another great live episode of Full Press Coverage Radio. We have a lot to talk about, let me tell you. I mean, what a wild couple of days here in the NFL, to say the least. So, without further ado, Mike.
Hello! If you think that was one kick-ass opening, give me a hell yeah.
Oh, hell yeah!
There we go. No, all kidding aside, absolutely. Happy 316 Day. Welcome to all of our listeners. He is Ian. I am Mike. We are, as always, highly caffeinated, somewhat opinionated. Your support is always appreciated, and we definitely thank you for being with us on this Friday morning, kicking off NFL free agency. Been an amazingly busy week in the NFL, and Ian and I will definitely be on top of most of the information for you as only we can bring it to you. So we will definitely do our best to keep you informed and maybe even a little entertained as well. As Ian said, action-packed show today. Definitely looking forward to it. So without further ado, as you so eloquently said, my friend, let's kick it off.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, the thing is, what I'm really hoping for, and something we missed out on last week, is I'm really hoping to get some breaking news today. So, maybe we'll find maybe one of these players will decide to sign their contract as we're live on the air, and I'd be so happy to bring it to you guys. So just listen in, tune in. It's going to be a great show. We have two guests coming up. We have Sam Smith. He is our Vikings editor. He's going to call in just about 10 minutes or so, and we'll talk some Vikings. We'll talk some Kirk Cousins. And then later in the show, we'll have Brandon Ray on, and he will talk some of the Bills moves. So it's going to be a pretty fun show. So I know technically free agency started yesterday, Wednesday. And but
yeah, wink, wink, nod.
Yeah, exactly. That really, I mean, Tuesday where everything just kind of went bonkers, and deals. Intentions of signing were announced across the league between teams and players, and I mean for one, the Patriots had in terms of losing players, they lost several that day. They have since made a few moves. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show, but obviously the big movement coming from the quarterback position, and obviously the big one being Kirk Cousins going to the Vikings, where a lot of people heading into the off season, thought, okay, maybe Denver would be a good destination, Arizona perhaps, but according to him, it was it was pretty much Minnesota from the get-go, and and this is how the news broke.
You have news on Kirk Cousins. What is it?
Lisa, the latest is that he is likely to sign with the Minnesota Vikings. I can tell you this, multiple teams all believe that he is going to wind up with the Vikings. He's going to visit the Vikings. It's his first visit. The other teams don't believe that there's any realistic hope of getting him at this point in time.
Yeah, and that was pretty much how Tuesday went for the most part. You woke up and it was every few minutes or so, more news broke, and like I said, obviously that was one of the biggest stories. Mike, I just want to kind of get your first, general basic reaction to what happened, and how do you feel this helps the Vikings team?
I think it's a great move for the Vikings. I mean, $84 million guaranteed for 3 years. I mean, that's a big, big contract, and there's no question about it. It's a lot to live up to, and I think that there's a lot of people that'll find a lot of ways to poke holes in that because they're saying, well, how can you give such a large amount of guaranteed money to one guy? But Kirk Cousins he's a bona fide NFL quarterback. And what he's going to bring to the table in Minnesota, this is a team that was within an eyelash of really getting to the Super Bowl. They almost played a Super Bowl in their home field. And, credit the Philadelphia Eagles. They absolutely took it to them in the NFC Championship game. Game wasn't exactly a nail-biter, but they were very close to being able to do that. And I think Cousins gives them the experience, and I think he gives them that swagger that maybe they didn't have this year. No disrespect to Case Keenum. I think he did a tremendous job this year in quarterbacking that team and getting them to where they needed to be. But Cousins comes in now this year with an identity. I think the thing that people were missing with the Vikings last year is that for a while you weren't sure who was going to be the quarterback. Was it going to be Bridgewater? Was it going to be Bradford? Or was it going to be Keenum? I think there were a lot of question marks. This year it eliminates that. It allows the Vikings to be single-minded in their task. I think this is a good move for them. And I do think it gives the Minnesota Vikings a little bit of an extra boost in terms of who might be coming out of the NFC. But, man, my friend, the NFC is loaded this year. I mean, let's take a look at some of the moves that some of these teams have made. It really is amazing how some of these teams are stacking up and what the NFC race is going to be like in 2018.
Well, it's just quarterback movement in general. You're seeing guys go all over the place. I mean, Sam Bradford's down in Arizona now, how he got another $20 million, but like I said, we'll get into more of that a little bit later because we're kind of a little bit focused on the Vikings here in the NFC. But it reminds you that football really is a year-round sport. You get a little bit of a lull there right after the bowl is over and the playoffs and everything like that, and the initial excitement of that whole deal wears off, but really this is pretty much full on into the draft, and some teams have already won the Super Bowl this early in March, and they have forgotten about the rest of team building, the late free agent acquisitions, the cuts, the draft, all that stuff. So it's pretty crazy to me to see how some of these teams react. Obviously here we are watching the Patriots sit back and do nothing, and that isn't a negative against them. That's just that's just how they approached it, and some fans understand what's going on and others don't, and and you see some of these other teams, and in particular probably the Browns, who made a number of moves that, like I said, we'll get into that later too, and they should be excited because they have I mean, look, they won 0.0 games last year. I think it's pretty safe to say that they're going to win more next year. And actually, they're putting together a pretty good team, and this is, before the draft. So, like I said, it's an exciting team. Some teams, get a little bit too excited over it. You can't win a championship in March. It helps. I mean, if you do it right, it helps. But, there's a lot of money being thrown around this offseason. And, yeah, it was pretty wild. So this is an exciting time. Whether you're a fan of a team who lost a player or whatnot, it's going to be fun to see Richard Sherman in a 49ers uniform, and Jordy Nelson is with the Raiders, and so on and so forth. So it's and for us, it probably won't be too crazy to see Jason McCourty in a Patriots uniform because we've been watching his brother for.
I was just going to say, we kind of have some experience seeing McCourty wearing Patriot blue, but I think you said it best. I think it's been a really wild couple of days. To me, what this really, I think, proves more than anything is the ease and I don't know, maybe the quickness with which a lot of these moves were announced when the quote-unquote tampering period began. Just goes to show you that the tampering period is nothing more than a PR, a PR boost for the NFL, just not to make it look like a complete and utter sham. I mean, if anybody thinks that these teams are not waiting, that these teams are waiting until that free agent tampering period to reach out, it's amazing. It's becoming now very reminiscent of the old opening for the for NFL free agency. Where people would, the minute NFL free agency would open, you'd have, if it opened at 12 noon, at 12:01 p.m., 5 or 6 deals would be announced immediately, and you're like, whoa, they negotiated a deal in a minute. It's amazing. But it was a real interesting couple of days. Really great for. I mean, like I said last week, it's manna from heaven for us. It's definitely an eye opener this year. Some of the contracts you mentioned, Bradford, $20 million, amazing to me, absolutely amazing. Drew Brees leaving $10 million on the table to re-sign with the Saints shows what his value is to him, and that value is to try to win another Super Bowl in New Orleans over that extra $10 million. So. Good for a lot of these guys, especially the quarterbacks. They're going to go out and they're going to get their money. We've seen some amazing contracts sold out within the last couple of days, and I'm sure we'll delve into them within the next few minutes.
Oh, absolutely. And, and that's the thing, too. It's you mentioned Drew Brees, and, I think we both, not that we thought he was ever going to leave, but we thought it was kind of, I don't know, just odd that there was nothing on the Drew Brees front leading up to, essentially 2 days ago. And then all of a sudden the deal was done, and, good for him. And, he's become the face of that franchise the second he signed that contract in 2006. And, they obviously ended up going on to win a Super Bowl a few years later. So, he is New Orleans. And I guess it's fitting that he returns to help this team, given the obviously yesterday that we heard the news that Tom Benson, the owner, passed away after a long battle with health issues, and obviously our condolences are with the family. Well, I mean, they're dealing with their own stuff, but it's the people of New Orleans, they love Tom Benson. So it's it's always, he's an iconic figure for that city and for that team, and everything that they went through after Katrina with the Saints in general, just winning the Super Bowl, all that stuff. So it's good for the Saints. They have Drew Brees should I don't know that one. Drew Brees should never sorry, Alexa just started talking to me. I should probably turn the thing off. It kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Hey, what you do on your own time. I'm not going to go there.
Whoa! Hey! This is a PG show. But when I decide it's going to be more than a PG show, we'll let the viewers know, or not. We'll just surprise them. But good for Drew Brees. Good for the Saints. He shouldn't ever leave New Orleans. He should retire a Saint, and that should be it. So, but like I said, we digress. We're going to focus a little bit here on the Vikings because we do have Sam Smith coming up soon, and we're gonna dive right into that. I do want to play as he's about to call in. I do want to play a clip from Cousins' introductory press conference. So here is Cousins as he's introduced as the new Vikings quarterback.
We'll open it up with a quick statement and then allow you to ask any questions. I'd love to answer. My family and I are humbled and honored to be here today. We're thrilled to be a part of this organization. There are many people to thank in a moment like this that have brought me to this point and to the days ahead. Those people I'll give an individual phone call to so I can save time, but I do believe that the decision makers here with the Vikings deserve a thank you for getting me here and the way they made this happen. And the belief they've shown in me means more than I can put into words. I'd also like to thank the Wilf family for giving the okay. That's a big commitment on their end. And again, it means a great deal that they would do that. We're thrilled. The contract it is what it is. But what my wife and I are thrilled about is the organization we're walking into. You can talk about being a family. You can talk about having a good locker room. I think all 32 teams will say that. I believe that it's true here. There were 5 or 6 players from the Vikings who were at the Pro Bowl with me a couple of years ago, and I could tell right away that some of the best players on the Vikings are also some of the best men and some of the best leaders. And I was really excited to have the chance to be here and to be a part of this team. So now the work begins. I'm not here to sign a contract. In essence, I'm here to play football. And I look forward to doing that here in about a month and going to work every day with my teammates. But for a long time, my family and I have prayed a verse from the Bible, Ephesians 3.
Well, and there we go. We just heard it. That was Kirk Cousins at the podium there just yesterday. So I do want to welcome in Sam Smith now. He is our Vikings managing editor at FullPressCoverage.com. And Sam, you are on with myself and Mike. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good, gentlemen. How are you guys?
Oh, we're fantastic.
We're doing great, Sam. Thanks for joining us this morning, bud.
No problem.
Well, as we've been kind of talking about the first 15 minutes or so, we've been kind of jumping into obviously free agency in the NFL, but more specifically Kirk Cousins, signing that big deal with the Vikings. And, I guess the question is the difference between Kirk Cousins and Case Keenum enough to take this team a step further and to help them win a Super Bowl?
I personally think so. I'm one of the, few people who watch the Vikings regularly who isn't particularly high on Case Keenum. I think he was solid for the system they had. He worked well with Pat Shurmur, but he also had the benefit of 2 of the best receivers in the NFL and a decent run game, decent offensive line, and he was good at maneuvering the pocket and finding open receivers, but he couldn't really make throws downfield. He was inaccurate a lot of the time. He wasn't great at reads. He was a little antsy in the pocket, and down the stretch I found him to be more of a liability than an asset. Kirk Cousins, to me, does a lot of things very well that Case Keenum just doesn't. He has a stronger arm. Defense is better. He's put up outstanding numbers the last 3 seasons, and I think he's just, is he a top 10 quarterback? No, but he's pretty darn close. I put him around 12 range, and I think he is, considering what Case Keenum is probably going to make in Denver. I think that $10 million discrepancy between their salaries is, I think, proportionate to the level of play that they're going to bring to each of their respective teams.
Now, Kirk Cousins really had his best season in 2015 with Washington, and there's things that his passer rating has declined a little bit as the years have gone on. I mean, you could probably attribute that to losing some of his skill players. He got his top receivers gone 2 years ago. So, do you have any concern over maybe that slight slip in play, or do you just kind of attribute that to just having a bad team around him and the Vikings being a better team? You think he's going to continue to trend upwards?
It's hard to say, because whenever you're giving a quarterback as much money as the Vikings are giving Cousins, and he's not a, quote, elite quarterback, there's always that concern over his slippage in play. And it's true, his team around him wasn't exceptional, and he was kind of, basically the only cog of their offense. But at the same time, it wasn't like he was transcending bad play around him and carrying his team to playoff victories either. I've seen some Vikings fans attribute it to kind of like the Joe Flacco signing, where you sign him kind of at the peak of their power and then they sharply decline afterwards, and that is a legitimate concern. I think as a personal fan of Kirk Cousins' play. I expect him to continue to develop, continue to show that franchise quarterback quality that he showed in Washington with bad talents around him, and now he does have maybe the best receiving duo in the league. He's got some great pass catchers in Kyle Rudolph and Dalvin Cook. His offensive line, well, Washington had a good offensive line. They were banged up a lot. Trent Williamson's missed a lot of games. And Minnesota will likely draft a lot of offensive linemen this year. They'll really look to protect him, I think, and they have obviously one of the best defenses in the NFL. I think it's the best situation for him to show that he is one of the, at least a franchise quarterback, a guy who can be counted on to lead his team to a playoff run.
Well, and that's the thing. It's crazy to think how much of that money is guaranteed. He's Mr. Guarantee now, because he's been living off these franchise and transition tags, and now he's got this contract that's. I mean, the Vikings are going for I'm not going to say going for broke, but they're betting a lot on Kirk Cousins that he's going to take this team to the next step. And I mean, they're on the cusp of like Mike said before you came on, they were on the cusp of playing a Super Bowl in their home stadium.
Right.
So, this team isn't far off, and I think I'm kind of with you where it's like I'm taking a practical approach, like looking at it like, okay, it's all good on paper, but there are legitimate concerns when it comes to how a player responds to signing that big contract. I think his head is in the game. I think he's going to be fine in that sense, but you never know. There's a lot of pressure on him, but at the same time, I think he's smart. He's playing indoors. He's playing with a lot of talent around him. So, there's no excuses for him. The pressure's on, and it's time for him to get the job done, so to speak.
Right, and the Vikings, I think they kind of got a small win. I don't really know what exactly other teams were offering him in terms of length of contract, but to only get him for 3 years, I think was a good move for the Vikings, because if it turns out he's never going to be a franchise quarterback again, like we've already seen the peak of what he can do, and he's not going to lead them anywhere. He's gone after 3 years, and it's fine. And also they're going to have to sign a lot of their talented defensive players to pretty big contracts. Hunter's going to demand a lot of money. Anthony Barr, eventually Everson Griffin, Harrison Smith will probably need bigger deals. So I think they did the best they could to not hamstring their team long term and go for it over the next season or two.
Yeah, Sam, I agree with that. I think that giving them a 3-year deal, I think, really helps in terms of giving them the option of being able to move on from the deal if they need to after 3 years if it turns out that Cousins isn't what they hoped. Now, keep in mind, this is a guy that made every start. He threw for more than 4,000 yards in each of the past 3 seasons. So how much do you think that type of reliability and that type of stability factored into the decision here? Because before you joined the show, Ian and I were talking very briefly about there being some uncertainty in the quarterback position in Minnesota with Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Bradford, Case Keenum. You never really were sure who was going to be able to settle into that role. With getting Cousins, he's reliable, and from the get-go that this is going to be the guy from start to finish. Do you think that was really the main factor in why they signed him, or do you think it was just the fit that you saw or that they saw with Minnesota? Because, like you said, Keenum was more of a fit with the Shermer system. Obviously, Shermer moving on to the Giants. Do you think it was really a player issue, or do you think that the stability factored in a lot here?
I'm sure it's probably a little of both. I'm sure they're fans of Cousins, the player, but at the same time, the Vikings haven't really had a player at quarterback that they know is going to be their guy for a considerable amount of time, really since, Dante Culpepper. I mean, they thought they had that in Bridgewater, and then it just evaporated. They thought maybe they had it in Favre for a short term, and then that kind of evaporated. Historically, Minnesota has had question marks at quarterback basically every single year they've been a franchise since Rand Tarkenton and a little bit with Dante Culpepper. And I think there's a little bit of sentimentality that comes from the ownership group, knowing that they almost never have a franchise quarterback locked in at the start of the season. And Kirk Cousins, at least on paper, brings that. And whether or not I'm not super familiar with what John DeFilippo plans to do offensively. I'm assuming he's going to have a similar style of play calling to Doug Peterson. But, considering what the Eagles are able to do with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles, I think Kirk Cousins fits well into that too. And obviously with the personnel he has around him, I think he can fit well into, that what the Vikings bring. I think it's a good fit, personnel-wise. I think it's a good fit in terms of finding a franchise quarterback for at least 2 or 3 years.
Now, with the, I agree. I was gonna say, now obviously now that they have the whole, last year they're going into the season, they have three different quarterbacks. Teddy Bridgewater was obviously on the mend and looking to come back, and then you had Sam Bradford was the guy, and then he goes down, and then it's Case Keenum, and then can Case Keenum do this? Can he do that? And this year, like you said, it's Kirk Cousins. He's the guy. He's the starter. He will be in there. There's no controversy. There's no quarterback waiting in the wings. He doesn't have glass knees like Sam Bradford. So it's you guys know. With that in mind, how do you think that they attack the rest of this offseason, particularly heading into the draft, knowing that they have their quarterback at least for the next 3 years? So.
Well, it looks like they're going, from all indications, they're going after Sheldon Richardson pretty hard. It sounds like they almost certainly have him locked up, and there have been some rumors that they're going to go after Tyrann Mathieu, which if they get both those, I don't know how they're going to do that, but if they do, it kind of basically locks in what they're going to do with at least the first pick in the draft, and that's go after the offensive line, particularly the interior line. Vikings fans are pretty gung-ho on them drafting Billy Price out of the center/guard out of Ohio State. I personally am a big fan of Will Hernandez in that spot, but it seems like that's if they fail to lock into Tyrann Mathieu, then it's certainly possible to see them taking a corner with the first-round pick. It's kind of interesting to draft a nickel corner, but they might have to say goodbye to Trey Waynes in a year, so that could be something they look at. They could. I've heard some people say they'll go after a safety, but at the very least, in terms of quantity of picks, I think 2, 3, maybe 4 are going to be invested in the offensive line in the draft.
No, and I think that's smart. I mean, teams that struggle, a lot of the times, especially you see quarterbacks getting hit and hurt and all that stuff, and it's it's weak offensive line play. We saw Seattle. Maybe sabotage their chances by investing heavily in the defense, and they committed $4 million, $5 million to the offensive line, which that's just not going to cut it. And it's like, if they didn't have Russell Wilson, it would be even worse because so it's like you need that line. So it's a smart. It puts the Vikings in a very good situation where they're not, they're looking to. They don't have many dire needs, so they have to be smart. So you take the best lineman. It's kind of like how the Patriots have drafted. Like every year, like some fans are, let's draft this guy. They're going to draft this running back, and they take Nate Solder, with the 31st overall pick, and it's like, who the hell is Nate Solder? And now everyone's up in arms about him leaving because oh my God, how are you going to find another left tackle? And, well, I mean, there is the draft coming up, and they did take Nate Solder pretty late in the first round, so there are plenty of options. But that's how good teams do it. They understand the complexities and how of this game and how it works, and it's like you can't have. It doesn't matter who you have back there. I mean, a certain quarterback's gonna make up for some of these deficiencies better than others, but if you have a porous offensive line, it's really not going to do you any good. So, no, it's smart. It's smart by the Vikings.
This is a especially deep draft, I think, for offensive line, particularly interior. Yeah. Like, you're getting starting quality players all the way back into the 6th round, and from my study. And there's, like, I could project probably 6, 7 linemen going in the 1st round, and then a handful of others who are maybe first-round talents will go to the 2nd. It's a great draft to really start to build your offensive line.
Oh, absolutely. And I like I said, with Solder leaving the Patriots, it's almost certain to me now that they're going to draft a tackle with their first pick, whether or not they keep the first round pick or not. But whether it's first round, second round, the Patriots will end up drafting a tackle. So it is. You're right. This is a good draft for linemen. And well, before we get you out of here, I do want to ask you about, you had mentioned you weren't the biggest fan of Case Keenum, but I just kind of want to get your thoughts on how you think he is going to do in Denver, and if he has enough talent around him to really continue that success he had last season with the Vikings.
Well, no, I don't. At least not right away.
Yeah.
He has some decent receivers. He's got Thomas. He's got Sanders. He's got a 1,000-yard rusher in Anderson. I'm not even 100% convinced he's going to win the starting job, to be honest. I think Denver still might look to draft a quarterback in the first round. But I think he's got a lot of starting experience now. He's got 14, 15, that's kind of playoffs, I guess 16 games under his belt now. Moments weren't too big for him, I'll say that. And he can win football games. There's no doubt about it. I don't think he's, the one piece missing to get Denver back to the playoffs. They're a 5-11 team. And while I think he's a better quarterback than Trevor Siemian, I wouldn't say he's so astronomically better that Denver's now suddenly a playoff team. They have work to do around him, but if they can get some more offensive pieces around him, I think he could have some level of success. So I think he'll throw for 4,000 yards this year. No, I don't, but I don't think he's going to be a complete bust with that contract. I think he'll be serviceable. Like the 20 to 25th best quarterback in the league is how I would rate him.
That seems fair, and that's the thing too. It's like I think Denver's issues are now getting to the point where they're more than just a quarterback, because they kind of got, I don't want to say old, but they got, they did kind of get old overnight. Obviously they got rid of Akeem Talib. They traded him to the Rams, this past week or whatever. So I think they're going through a bit of a transition as well. And you said, don't be surprised if Denver drafts a quarterback. Well, fourth time's the charm, right, John Elway? So we'll see if he can actually make the right choice this time, because so far he's 0-for. And if it was
Tito just got released by the Mets, you never know. It could be a reunion in Mile High. Let's start the rumor train.
Yeah, hey, I'm all for that. That's all Tim Tebow does is win, right? That one
all
pass.
He does is win football games.
Right, Steelers fans, right, Parker? Sorry, that was a little bit of a low blow there, but
it's been a while.
No, hey, yeah, it's been a while, but hey, Skip Bayless still rides that Tim Tebow train from that one pass. So yeah, never mind them getting absolutely throttled by the Patriots the following week. But hey, whatever. So, but yes, thank you, Sam, so much for coming on. We always enjoy you having on the show. Yeah, and we're just glad that there's a lot of news going on right now, and it's slowing down a little bit, but hey, the draft is just around the corner, so
fun time.
Yeah,
absolutely, Sam. Well, thanks. Best of luck to the Vikes this year.
My pleasure, gentlemen. See you later.
All right, take care. That was Sam Smith. Like I said, he is our Vikings managing editor for FullPressCoverage.com, and you can follow him on Twitter. It is at @SamC_Smith. So, like he said, we kind of think along the same lines when it comes to Kirk Cousins, and that, like, yes, he's a better quarterback than Case Keenum, and he can do a lot of things that Keenum can't do, in terms of making certain throws, certain throws that really put you over the top, and with a talented team around him, I think Kirk Cousins is going to have a pretty damn good year. Whether or not that's enough to win him a Super Bowl, you never know, because there's a lot of good teams, and particularly in the NFC. So, time will tell. We will, I guess we'll find that out in September when they start playing games, and there's actually, we know what the actual teams are, because, like I said, there's so many stages to this off season. This is only the first. You have this initial rush of free agency, but you still have the draft, you still have training camp, you still have late off season veteran cuts that we've seen, particularly with the Patriots making moves late in the off season that turn out to be, crucial moves for the team. So, it's good to be excited when your team signs a big player, and it's okay to be disappointed to see, fan favorites walk away. But it's important to put it in perspective and to realize that there is so much more to this off season, and we're only getting started. So, there's a lot that goes on between now and September to figure out who and what players make up what team. So right now it's it's been fun. Let me tell you, Mike.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, you definitely hit the nail right on the head. And you also made a very good point in that, yeah, it is. It's nice to be very active and have a lot of exciting things happening in the first couple of days of free agency, but it's a process. And we've seen teams do this before. We've seen the New England Patriots do it before. There was a lot of people perched on the end of the Tobin this week, as I like to say. They were ready, to jump off with all, with the, it really still amazes me that people have seen the process work so many times, yet so many people still become paranoid about the Patriots being quiet or not fielding the team. They're going to be there. They took some free agent hits. There's no question about it. Guys that they've lost. I mean, Danny Amendola, Nate Solder, Deion Lewis, Malcolm Butler, amazing players. You're not going to, replicate, the loss of those guys. But the Patriots always find a way to bring in players that are able to fit the system, and they're able to keep the team afloat. And I think that's exactly what you're going to see this time around. The roster reinforcements that you're used to seeing New England do, they're going to come through the draft. They'll go through late free agency. Patriots are always active in the trade market, maybe as much or more so than any other team in the league. They really work the trade wires as good as anybody I've seen. So they're going to need a good draft. There's no question about it. They're also getting guys like Julian Edelman, Dante Hightower. They're coming back from injuries. I like Burkhead coming back to the Patriots. I think that it's a good move for them, gives stability in the backfield. We saw a lot of flashes of him being able to really make some things happen near the goal line last year. So I think they're going to be just fine in New England. I know a lot of this week, it seemed like over the course of Wednesday and Thursday, people were just sending me messages and, Twitter DMs and whatnot about, what is going on in Foxborough, what's happening. But it's kind of like Groundhog Day. It happens over and over again almost each and every year, with the exception of a couple of off seasons where the Patriots have just, really been gangbusters. But I think they're going to be fine. I really do. I don't see anything yet that leads me to believe that this year they're going to fall off Max Kellerman's cliff.
No. Well, I think one of the the big things about it too is just, you think about some of the money that was being thrown around, and that's a pretty huge deal, because you see some of these contracts, particularly some of the contracts that some of these Patriots got, and that's a lot of money, and the Patriots were they were limited in their cap space to begin with, and they're never going to last year's signing of Gilmore notwithstanding, they're never really going to, throw too much money at players. And, that's not necessarily the best thing to do. And I think it was, I hope I'm remembering this correctly, but I think it was Louis Riddick, I think it was on SportsCenter, had made a good point about how some of these teams, they go out and recklessly grab up these players without a plan. They'll go out and make sure that they sign these players, and they throw a lot of money at these players, and it's they get into these bidding wars, and eventually they'll sign them. Then they'll be like, okay, what do we do with them? Where Belichick knows what he's going to do. He's going to sign these players. He's going to find the right players that he wants in his system, and the best teams do that. I'm not just saying it's just the Patriots, but obviously we know them best, and obviously they're a very good example of how you do that. But you see some of these teams like get really excited, and it's like we've seen teams in the past, like the Redskins of about 12 years ago, the Adam Archuletas and all that. You throw a bunch of money at these teams, and they have the super team, and then they're 7-9 because you don't know what to do with them. Right. So it's and that was kind of the theme. And another interesting little tidbit I had heard heading into free agency before all this mayhem went on was, teams were averaging 30. I think the league, each team averaged like 32 million in cap space, which is an absurd amount. I mean, part of that is obviously going, attributed to the fact that the cap went up, but there's money to be spent, and we saw it. There was a ton of contracts handed out that, like I said, I mean, it was a little bit too rich for the Patriots' blood. But we've seen now that they're starting to make a few more smart moves and whatever to keep them a little bit more under the cap. But yeah, money, man.
Money
talks.
Absolutely. It talks, especially this time of year, mid-March when the free agency opens. That's the name of the game.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's just like we have, I mean, so many big contracts being signed. I mean, except the Jets were kind of quiet to start. I mean, and they had the most cap space, but they've even made some moves here in the last couple of weeks. Obviously bringing in Teddy Bridgewater. So like I said, it's as a Patriots fan or someone who follows the team pretty intently. If you remove emotion out of it, you can see the strategy, you can see how they're going at it. But there's some fans that get really involved and don't. They don't follow it as intently, and they see it, and they why is this guy leaving? Why is this guy leaving? But, really, we kind of figured Dion Lewis was going to be gone. We knew Malcolm Butler was going to be gone. Like I said, if there was any chance before the Super Bowl, that was gone. So, those two guys, we expected. Danny Amendola, a little bit of a surprise. Nate Solder, that's probably the biggest one, but so it's you just got to kind of take it and realize that it is March, and realize that like I said there's a lot more team building to go, and the Patriots just were never going to get into the situation where they were throwing a whole bunch of money at these top players, but we were talking about, maybe getting Richard Sherman on a team-friendly deal. Well, he got a raise. Jordy Nelson, same thing. He left Green Bay, thinking, okay, maybe we'll sign Jordy Nelson, thinking, okay, maybe he'll take a little bit less. Nope, he went out to Oakland, and Oakland does what they do, and, in desperate need of some defensive help, they went out and threw money at offensive players. So, that's just the name of the game, so.
No, you're absolutely right. And, I mean, you mentioned a lot of these guys, and, I know we come back to the Patriots a lot. I mean, obviously, everybody listening knows where our fan allegiance is lie. But
yeah.
In terms of, these guys that did move on, I mean, Malcolm Butler, you hit the nail right on the head. We knew after the Super Bowl there was no shot that he was coming back. And he ended up getting a great deal in Tennessee, and I think he'll do very well there. Dion Lewis, you probably figured he was going to get more on the open market than the Patriots were willing to pay for him. They've got a crowded backfield, so eventually something was going to give there. Lewis had an amazing season. Definitely going to miss him. I loved being able to refer to him as the Fire this year. It was a lot of fun, and he did a great job for them. But he will be missed. But again, Tennessee ponied up, and I think he'll do very well there as well. Nate Solder is definitely a one that hurts. There's no question about it, because his impact on the offensive line, protecting Tom Brady's blind side, he's one of the guys that you look at and say, yeah, if there was an essential free agent that you wanted to have them bring back, and I said this right from the get-go, he was priority one for them in terms of free agency. Then I looked at the contract. And that was the thing about it, is you take a look at the contract that they had, a 4-year deal worth $62 million, $35 million guaranteed. On average, Solder's annual salary is going to be approximately $15.5 million.
What?
The Patriots were not going to match that.
What?
Dynamite dropping, money. But no, seriously. I mean, they were not going to match that. And I saw a great piece written earlier in the week by NBC Sports Boston's Tommy Curran, and Tom basically said that's why you don't let a guy like Solder hit the free agent market, because he's going to completely price you out. I don't know if Solder would have taken the hometown discount this time. You have to look at how fragility in his life has really shown him that you have to strike while the iron is hot. I mean, obviously, everybody feels terrible about what he's going through right now with his son Hudson, who is bravely, fighting cancer and still undergoing treatments. His deal to go to New York, I'm sure, allows him the opportunity to either travel back to Boston, where he has been treated at Dana-Farber and Boston Children's, or it gives him the opportunity to be treated in New York, where the hospitals are excellent as well. Our managing editor for the Giants, Curtis Rawls, touched on that in his account of Solder coming to the Giants this week. So while a lot of these are definitely difficult to take for Patriots fans, definitely have to look at the big picture here. And when you take a look at some of these numbers that are thrown around, it is understanding why these teams, were able to swoop in and get some of these guys. Even Danny Amendola with the $8.25 million guaranteed, I think that was a little bit more than the Patriots were willing to go for him. So, it's going to be, it is interesting, always to see who is willing to, press the panic button, imminently after, a guy leaves for the Patriots and, they don't pay. That's the other thing that I heard this week. So the Patriots don't pay. Yeah, they do. They pay. They just don't pay top dollar for every available free agent or every free agent they'd like to retain. Seems to have worked so well for them so far, but, as always, we'll see what happens. Team dynamics might be a little bit different this year, too, which might play a role in this. So maybe we can get into that in a little bit. But as for the actual just, up and down numbers of this, it does make sense when you take a look at some of the contracts that these guys have signed.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm just like, just think about receivers in general. I mean, some of the money that's being thrown around, and I look at it, and it's it doesn't baffle me because, like I said, you figure that you're going to overpay, but I mean, you have 3 years, $42 million for Allen Robinson from the Bears.
What?
Sammy Watkins somehow can't stay on the field, but he gets 3 years, $48 million with the Chiefs.
What?
Marquise
a lot
Lee,
of Steve Weisers, my friend. I don't know that.
Yeah, oh yeah, I got started early this morning.
Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. You got to, go for it.
Stone Cold Sea of Austin Day today, and then St. Patrick's Day tomorrow.
Absolutely, yeah.
But see, Marquise Lee re-signs with the Jags. What was it? 4 years, $34 million.
What?
Yes, it was.
Paul Richardson, 5 years, $40 million with Washington.
What?
Jordy Nelson, $15 million with Oakland.
What?
That's what I'm saying. Like how the Patriots going to be able to, and that's the thing too. It's like that makes me feel like, okay, you got to sign Brandon Cooks now and not let him get to free agency. If he gets to free agency, he's gone. It's the type of money that's being thrown around, especially to these receivers. I mean, like I said, Sammy Watkins, come on. 3 years,
that was an
million.
eye-opener. When you saw the details of the Watkins deal with the Chiefs, you went to look, and $30 million guaranteed. That's the eye-opening stat with a lot of these contracts. We've seen big contracts thrown around before, and the guaranteed money is moderate and it's manageable, and you're able to backload it. Maybe some renegotiation, maybe some contract structuring, and it doesn't end up being the big cap hit that everybody thinks. But the guaranteed money is increasing. My question to you, and this is something that's kind of been burning in the back of my head all week, and maybe we can just kind of flush this out a little bit. Do you believe that the increase we've seen this year in guaranteed money has any correlation to the NFL's difficulty with CTE?
That's an interesting point. I think it has to have, because I think these players are a lot more aware of the lasting effects of playing this game for a long time, and you see a lot of these guys, have a little bit stronger stance on getting that guaranteed money because they realize that this is, the average career of an NFL player is something along the lines of like 3 years. Obviously you have exceptions to the rule, but we forget that these rosters are 52 players deep and then sometimes more. So a lot of these players, they have one shot at this, and if you don't make the money, you may be stuck dealing with issues and still having to work a job. So I think these players, especially ones that are in the position that they understand that, like, you know, they're not going to lose out on a bunch of money because of a freak injury, or you know, they want to know that when they go to work, they're guaranteed money for the next 3 years and enough that they can live off of the rest of their life. So, you know, I think there is some sort of correlation, because I feel like these players are, I don't want to say more educated, but more aware of some of the repercussions of this game. You know, everything comes with a catch, and this is no exception. You know, you get to play a great game of football. You get to make a lot of money, much more than most Americans. However, you know, there are sacrifices, and I think these guys are starting to see that. I mean, we've seen it with players that have realized it and decided that, hey, you know what, I'm ready to walk away. You saw Patrick Willis, linebacker out of San Francisco, in San Francisco, who, was, arguably one of the best in the game at the time, decide, you know what, I'm done. It's not worth it for me. And, Calvin Johnson, the same thing, one of the, if not the best receiver at the time, to just decide to walk away. So, I think these guys are a lot more aware of what can and will happen to them as they continue to play this game. And, for a lot of them, it's not going to dissuade them from playing the actual game, but they're going to want to get paid a little bit more, and they want to make sure that they have money that's going to take care of their family and take care of themselves, later in life when these things, start to rear their ugly head. So, no, I think that was a great point, and it's not something that I've necessarily thought about, but, I definitely do think there's something there.
Yeah, and I happened to think about this the other night, and really I think the Solder deal really kind of made me think about what was the whole, what was the basic background behind a lot of the guaranteed money being a little bit more than we've seen in years past. And not that I'm saying that that's what Solder was thinking. I don't know what his thought process was. I know he's a very devoted family man, and I know that was probably priority one for him when he was looking at possible deals and what he was going to do. But I think it's an interesting point, especially with everything that's been going on. And you mentioned Willis. We've seen that, with a lot of, players that are just saying, hey, you know what, I'm only in this for a certain amount of time, or I've seen enough, I'm done. I think it is. I think it's interesting to take a look, and, I think it'll be interesting to see as the years go on next year in free agency and whatnot, if this becomes a trend. It might be. The guaranteed, money this year is definitely up from last year. So will this continue on? And, it's definitely something I know the NFL is going to be keeping an eye on, definitely.
Well, I think, too, it's like, obviously teams have money to spend, too. You think about, the cap continues to go up and all that. And, I think that adds to it as well. So it's like, teams are willing to give these contracts out a little bit more because, they can get away with some of these mistakes. Obviously the Patriots are still business as usual in terms of how they do their stuff. But, for the most part, like, you're seeing these teams that, this is the time where every team has hope. So that plays into some of these decisions that are made. They think that, okay, this one player is going to be enough to push them over the edge. And you know what? If they're in competition with someone else, they're going to throw a little bit more money, and that gives the player the advantage. And like I said, when the player's armed with extra knowledge of how the game treats them and having that know-withal to sit there and require some more guaranteed money, I think there's all those factors factor into the whole reason why that money's going up. But hey, good. If you spend it wisely, you're going to be good. So I mean, these players, you'll think about a guy like Rob Gronkowski, who supposedly has never spent a dime of his contract money and relies on endorsements. I mean, it's crazy. You wouldn't think. I know it. He kind of gets unfairly stereotyped, but you wouldn't think that Gronkowski would would be making wise financial decisions. But he's a guy that is kind of ahead of the curve there, and if he decides like he's been flirting with to retire this year, next year, he's going to be set. And I think a lot of these players, especially ones that, you think about Rob Gronkowski, he's won 2 Super Bowls. He's had a lot of success. I mean, he's been to 4 Super Bowls. So, I mean, he's only played in a couple of them, 3 out of those 4. But, still, the guy has experienced more than enough career success to be satisfied when you think about it. So, for him, his health comes next, and he has the money. He's made plenty of money in his career. He's still going to have the endorsements. He's still going to have opportunities outside of football that aren't going to affect his health. So yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a factor, and we'll see how it goes the next couple of years. I mean, I would imagine that the cap's going to go up again next year, so we'll see what kind of money gets thrown around then. But yeah, no, that's been the name of the game the last couple of days. It's signing contracts, and I'm still kind of waiting for. I'm hoping something breaks. I don't even care. It could be like Danny Woodhead signing somewhere. I just want to break some news. Yes, and I was I was certainly one of those people that immediately was like, oh well, the Patriots would be interested, and rightfully so. They're always going to look in on Danny Woodhead, but I kind of think that ship has sailed with bringing back Burkhead. There'll be a place for Woodhead somewhere, but he's a guy who struggles to stay on the field. But I don't know. We'll jump away from the Patriots just for a moment because, like we said, there have been plenty of free agent signings. One that was actually there's 2 because they're kind of related. So the Packers released Jordy Nelson, and then subsequently signed Jimmy Graham. Now, I personally think this is kind of just a lateral move. I think peak Jordy Nelson with Aaron Rodgers and Jimmy Graham as what he is now it's kind of a wash. So I don't think Green Bay necessarily got that much better. If they had somehow managed to bring back Jordy Nelson, in addition to bringing in Jimmy Graham, now that's a different story. But really, I just kind of see this as a lateral move. I think Jimmy Graham, he's called a tight end. He's a really good receiver. He's not, it was funny several years ago when people tried to compare him to Rob Gronkowski, and it's missing the whole point. Jimmy Graham's a great receiver. He's essentially, he's like a Julio Jones, a big bodied receiver that plays tight end. Whereas Rob Gronkowski is, he receives, he's a blocker, all that stuff. So I think Jimmy Graham's going to do great with Aaron Rodgers. I think he's going to be very productive. I don't think it's going to be much different than him and Jordy Nelson. And, I kind of think that's where they're at. I don't think that, like I said, that drastically improves their offense or anything like that. But it'll be fun to watch. I know Jimmy Graham's a good, exciting player, especially down in the red zone. So I want to see your thoughts on that.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, in addition to, angering Packers fans on Twitter, which I'm sure you just did with that comment, I'm going to absolutely agree with you. I think that it is a lateral move. I think that the production that you're going to get out of Jimmy Graham, the production that you got out of Jordy Nelson. I know Packers fans love to downplay it and make it seem like Jordy Nelson is somebody that the Packers just scraped up off the scrap heap, and Aaron Rodgers made him a phenomenal talent, and without him, he's going to crumble and wither. I think you're going to see him have a good year with Derek Carr in Oakland this year. I think that's a good fit for him. He's one of the guys that you looked at and said, wow, he'd really make a very good Patriot. But, obviously, the contract negotiations went well with Oakland, and, best of luck to Jordy on that deal. But I think that the Packers definitely, I think it's going to be a great, tandem with Rodgers, by the way. I'm not downplaying that at all. I think it was a very good move to bring him in. I'm not sure how much better it makes you in the long run. I think the production is going to be a wash. So we'll see what happens in Green Bay this year. I know when he went there, a lot of people started to believe that, the Super Bowl tickets were already going to start to be printed up. It'll be interesting to see how that works out with a healthy Aaron Rodgers and how the team, progresses along. But, the Packers are always out there in the ether, as, people like to say. And it's just another cog in the wheel in the NFC. We'll see who emerges as that team this year. Because don't forget, around this time last year, my friend, we were thinking the Giants were a Super Bowl contender, and look at how that worked out.
don't remind me. That's there was a lot of things I went back and I read one of my pieces from probably June of last year, predictions, and trust me, don't go back and read it. It's something that about the only thing I got right was Tom Brady winning the MVP. So,
yeah, I'm sure I was right there with you. I'm not. I don't think my soothsaying days were definitely off last year. That radar was off, but I think that's just a real testament to the fact that these games have to be played. You don't win things on paper. You can, win the off season, as Rex Ryan used to like to say, but it doesn't matter if it doesn't translate to wins. And that ultimately is what the true test is going to be. You're not going to know who won the off season this year until next year's off season. And I think that's really the key that everybody has to remember. If you're an NFL fan, get excited about the guys that you have coming in, but take a look at how these guys are going to mesh and what's going to happen on the field. Could be a different season than you might be willing to even imagine. So, and that goes for the guys in New England too. There's no guarantee that they're going to be in the thick of things every year. They have been up until this point. It's a pretty good conclusion, but it's not a foregone conclusion, and I think everybody has to remember that. If you're a fan of any of the 32 NFL teams, you got to see how your team's shaping up on the field. There are teams that are going to surprise, and there are teams that are going to disappoint.
No, and you're absolutely right, and it kind of goes along with what we were saying earlier that it's March 16th, Austin 3/16. We know it's very early. Like we haven't even, we're still over a month away from the draft. That starts on April 26th. There's a long time. There's a long ways to go before the start of the season. So a lot of these teams are going to look much different than what they look now. For last year at this time or around this time, we thought Coney Ely was going to be, the guy on that defensive line for the Patriots, and it wasn't meant to be. So there's a lot of things that go into this team building process, and a lot of these teams started it already, and they're good to be excited. There's some teams that really improved. Cleveland, like I said, I joke about Cleveland, but adding a guy like Jarvis Landry, he's on right now. He's on the franchise tag for $16 million, but he's a talented player. You put him with Josh Gordon, Tyrod Taylor. We'll get into more about some of the Bills moves with Brandon Ray here coming up in a little bit. But Tyrod Taylor, for his deficiencies, he's a quarterback who doesn't turn the ball over, and he brings a bit of stability to that Cleveland offense, who is all of a sudden, they got some pretty good players on that team. And, I guess we're going to see what Hugh Jackson's all about, if he's really that quarterback guru. And, who knows? Maybe they could win 5, 6, 7 games next year. You never know. Like I said, there's hope. There's hope with teams like Cleveland. Like I said, you can only go up after losing, 16 games. But, look, they're going to be they have an opportunity with teams like the Steelers and the Ravens and the Bengals, who are kind of, obviously the Steelers are still probably maybe the second or third best team in the AFC right now. You got to kind of consider Tennessee might have, got a little bit stronger this offseason, but those teams, they're getting a little bit older. We don't know what's going to happen with Le'Veon Bell. Ben Roethlisberger's kind of, inching towards the end of his career. Joe Flacco sucks. So I don't have much more to add to that. It is what it is. So
yeah, I think you should save that as a soundbite that we can play throughout the year. I kind of love the way that sounded just coming off. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to.
There's not a lot of love for Flacco up here in Boston. I can tell you that.
Jump ball Joe, man. That's man. And now he's check down Joe. That's the crazy thing. He used to be jump ball Joe. Now he's check down Joe. But no, it's this is a pretty unique opportunity for, and like I said, I still think they draft a quarterback. Like I said, Tyrod Taylor is a nice player. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's better than what Cleveland has had for I don't even know. Maybe since Josh McCown was their quarterback for that, brief moment there for a few weeks. But, I mean, he's probably as good as they're going to have for a while. So, draft a quarterback. Tyrod Taylor's already said that he's not a bridge guy. He's coming in to play, which is a great attitude. I mean, he's never – there's one thing about Tyrod Taylor in that there's never been a bad thing said about the guy. I mean, he comes in, he does the job right. He comes in and he works hard and all that. So he's going to go out there, he's going to play the game, and he's going to give Cleveland a really good chance. And you know what? If they happen to hit on a few of these draft picks that they had, and they have a lot, they're still sitting there with the 1st and 4th overall pick, and they've signed Carlos Hyde. They brought in Jarvis Landry. They obviously brought in Tyrod Taylor. So they have those pieces. They don't have to take Saquon Barkley if they don't want to. They could draft, they can draft their quarterback. They can draft another player. Like I said, this is this could be a really good team in a couple of years, and the perfect timing with teams like the Steelers and Ravens possibly taking a step back for a little bit. So, you never know. It's a very exciting time for a lot of these people. So for a lot of these teams and
because
fans,
it resets the whole landscape of the league, and free agency is the ultimate equalizer, and the new league year, I should say, is the ultimate equalizer in conjunction with the draft, because really they work hand in hand. But you make an interesting point on the Browns. It could be interesting to see what they're going to do this year and how they might be able to make a little bit of a leap. Obviously, you hit the nail right on the head. They're going to be better than last year. They have nowhere to go but up. But at the same time, I like the moves that they've made to not just incrementally kind of inch their way out of the cellar. I think they have positioned themselves to, I don't want to say be in contention, but they've positioned themselves to be one of those teams that you look at on the schedule and say, boy, that's not a slam dunk. I don't know if I really want to go in there and play them. They're a team that has nothing to lose. And when you play a team that has nothing to lose, it can be a scary proposition, especially for a contender with a lot to lose. So, yeah, they could be an interesting team to follow this year. I'm definitely going to have both eyes on them.
No, absolutely. And like I said, I mean, the draft being a big thing. And, so this is actually a good little segue because we're going to have Brandon Ray come on here. We'll talk a little bit more about the Bills here in a moment. But this is a good opportunity to let everyone know that amidst this free agency madness, we've still been doing our full press coverage mock draft, and we started just this past week. So it's been a lot of fun so far. We're through 8 picks. So today we actually have the 49ers and the Raiders coming up. So you can tune in roughly about 6:30 p.m. tonight, and both picks will be revealed. But it's been a fun experience, and when it comes to the Browns, we had the first overall pick. We had our managing editor Dan Justick. He picked Sam Darnold. So right off the bat, you can see that. The Browns are still going to be in a spot to be able to take a quarterback, and they should. This is good teams always draft a quarterback. You never you see the Patriots for years constantly draft quarterbacks. There was a time where they were drafting every other year. You bring in you never know who's going to be that next guy, and so I feel like. I feel like this is an opportunity for the Browns to get it right, and hopefully this isn't a Trent Richardson, Brandon Weeden type of draft. You know what I mean? Where it's like, they have that opportunity and they blow it. Or, it's like you pick a guy who's 28 years old coming out of college, and it's just it's never an easy chore because none of these guys are guaranteed. How many guys have come out and been a sure thing, and only to have played maybe a handful of games in the NFL. So, the draft's never a sure thing. But if you do follow our mock draft, I guarantee you it's going to be the closest we have to being just about accurate. I can almost guarantee that every pick's going to be right on point. I'm pretty sure Mike agrees with me for the most part, right, Mike?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah. Yeah,
for the most part.
You have a tendency to get things right every now and then, my friend. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I do. I absolutely do agree. And it's one of those things where you always love to see me. The reason why I love this time of year is because it's not so much the moves that are made. It's once the moves start getting made, you keep wanting to see what's the next step. What's the next step? I feel like Tom Brady in a way. Like the next one is the one that I like the most.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I am with free agency, with the draft. The mock draft, I really want to give a big shout out to all of our full press, quote unquote, GMs so far. I think they've done a great job. Definitely read the articles attached to these picks because it really gives you a good insight as to what they're thinking and to what the teams that they cover each and every day are thinking. And, you know, you look to the draft for that type of rebirth and renew. And I think you hit the nail right on the head where you said before, you know, you hope that the Browns, you know, don't have that, you know, that Trent Richardson type, Brandon Weeden type of draft. It's hit or miss. You can never tell what's going to work, what's going to not work. And when, you know, a sixth-round pick, backup quarterback out of Michigan might just drop in your lap, and you know you end up riding that wave for about 19 years. Probably not a likely scenario for many other teams, but you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, I want to take this moment to once again just fall to my knees and thank Bill Polian for ignoring his first-round grade on Tom Brady and deciding to just let him sit and fall to the Patriots. I will forever be grateful to Bill Polian for that. So thank you, Bill. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing in your life right now, if you're getting ready to go on ESPN, thank you so much for ignoring every instinct that you apparently have with Tom Brady and letting him walk and letting him fall, to the Patriots. So thank you, Bill. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, definitely, because, you know, we all know that Bill Polian had him targeted as a potential first-round pick, and, you know, he had not that he had another 5 rounds to take Tom Brady if he wanted to do that, but, yeah, Bill's good at tooting his own horn. He is, you know, he's a great football mind. You know, I'm never going to take anything away from him in terms of that. He's done a great job of building teams, you know, what he did up in Buffalo, what he did in Indianapolis, but, yeah, there's definitely no ego check in the Polian household. You know, he loves to broadcast his brilliance.
Well, the thing I find funny about that is like, you know, he's saying that to kind of, you know, himself up a little bit, but really it makes him look bad because, like I said, I mean, if he really I don't care if you have Peyton Manning, if you have a first-round grade on a quarterback and you say you saw all these intangibles and you just don't draft it's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, exactly.
like you're like it almost makes him look worse. But you know, hey, whatever. I digress. But before I get too far away, I did want to before we bring Brandon on here in a minute, I did want to run down so far. Like I said, we've been through 8 picks in our draft. We have the 49ers and the Raiders coming up here tonight. So, like I mentioned before, the Browns first overall took Sam Darnold. The New York Giants for the second overall pick took Josh Rosen. 2 quarterbacks right off the bat. The Colts, run by our one of our favorites, Ben Pfeiffer. They picked Bradley Chubb with the 3rd overall pick, and then back to the Browns, who took Saquon Barkley, another really good pick. Then the Broncos, after already signing Case Keenum with the 5th overall pick, took Josh Allen, and then the Jets took Baker Mayfield. The Buccaneers, they took Quentin Nelson, the offensive tackle, one of the many great tackles, like Sam mentioned in this draft. And he's probably one of the best. So that's a great pick for the Bucs, just because that they need they're going to need help on that offensive line. And then the Bears took defensive back Minkah Fitzpatrick out of Alabama. So it's been a lot of fun, and I think people are really getting a feel for maybe how this draft is going to go. And like I said, I'm pretty confident that our great writers and editors are going to nail this. So, you know, time will tell. I think you're working quite hard on that Patriots pick. I know you're working the phones, watching film, breaking down everything, you know, just really getting into it. So. I know
Absolutely.
You're probably doing it right now in between me talking and you talking. So I know.
That's
you're
right. Always no days off, no minutes off, no seconds off. Constant 100% focus. And you know, you'll see that when my Patriots pick is made next week. So.
Well, I'm excited to see it. So. Well, like I said, we have been talking a lot about the Patriots, and we've been talking about the some of the moves the Bills have made. So without further ado, I would like to welcome back to the show one of our favorite guests. He is Brandon Ray. He's the managing editor of Full Press Coverage Bills. And good morning, Brandon, and welcome back to the show.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you both?
Good. Thanks, Brandon. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. Before we start, I just want to say I apologize on behalf of every person who filled out a March Madness bracket if they did not pick Buffalo over Arizona. I personally did not expect that, but, you know, it wasn't just an upset. It wasn't even an upset. It was just a brutal beatdown of Sean Miller. And it was a great year. It's been a great year for the Buffalo Bulls, so hopefully they can continue dancing as the month goes on.
Yeah, definitely. Congratulations to them. That's a good segue. I'm glad that you allowed that. If I may take 2 quick seconds, I want to give a big shout out to my 2 hometown teams. URI yesterday with a big win over Oklahoma. Definitely proud to see the Rhody Rams advance. And my alma mater, the Providence College Friars, play today at 12:15 p.m. taking on the Aggies of Texas A&M. So go Friars!
Oh,
Thank you,
hell
John.
yeah!
Oh, yeah, the Steve Weisers will be flowing there, my friend. They will be flowing.
No, that was great, and that's the crazy thing about March Madness. And I'm never going to pretend to know much about college basketball. I'm the type of person that I'll just fill out a bracket just to see how dumb I am, and generally I'm proven right.
Yeah, and you're usually the one that wins the polls too, you know.
No, oh God, no. Oh. Yeah, I wish. You kidding me? Man, the pools I've been in, I've been. It's fun. I can't remember what year it was, but I want to say it was probably maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, where it was. I think it was the second round where like there were like 7 upsets, and it just completely ruined it. Just like that was it. That was the end of the tournament. Like everyone's bragging, there was no one even close, you know. But like I said, I mean, for me, it's all about guessing, and it's fun. It's exciting to watch, and it's when sports are best, and when you guys can, like I said, you get excited about Buffalo and Providence College and all that, and it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah,
I really
definitely.
enjoy it.
Well, Ian, it channels his inner Blinken from Robin Hood Men in Tights and guesses at his bracket. Brandon, definitely happy to have you on the show today. And the Buffalo Bills have definitely been busy, to say the least. I think they've been quietly had one of the best off seasons in the NFL so far, and I really like the additions that they've made. To me, or to you, I should say, who are the great additions that the Bills have made? Who kind of opened your eyes a little bit? What do you think is the most significant move they made so far?
So as of right now, I think the big one is defensive tackle Star Lotulelei. Obviously, that fills the biggest hole that the Bills had on the defense, especially when it came to the run game. 5 years, $50 million, for $25 million guaranteed. Now, a lot of people said this might be a lot of money, but if you compare it to the Marcel Darius extension contract the Bills gave him in 2015, that was a 6-year, almost $100 million. It's like chump change. Star Lotulelei is coming in, knowing Sean McDermott's system, and he's got great character, and he just shows up and he does his work. He's not like a big sack master. No, he just stops the run. Buffalo was struggling after they traded Darius away last year. I think that he fits well with Kyle Williams, who was brought back on a 1-year deal. But I also think that we're all overlooking defensive end Trent Murphy, coming in on a 3-year, $21 million deal.
Yeah, big move there.
Last season, he missed with a torn ACL in the first preseason game. He did violate the league's performance-enhancing drugs policy. What I like about that is that he went 4 weeks without pay last year, so his suspension was served, so he can technically start from week 1 this year. 2016, he had a great season, 47 tackles, 3 forced fumbles, and here's the key statistic, 9 sacks. So last year, Jerry Hughes and Shaq Boston, they were the team's sack leaders. They both had 4 each. So add in an extra 9 sacks per year in Trent Murphy, that just boosts up the Bills' pass rushing. And I think we're all overlooking, too, is cornerback Vontae Davis signed in early March. I think that strengthens up an already dangerous Buffalo Bills secondary.
No, and that's a great point, because I honestly, I kind of overlooked, kind of forgot about that move, because that's one of those moves that it's like it gets lost in these last 72 hours pretty much, that it's been a wild rush of seeing player movement and everything like that. So we talked about a little bit earlier about Tyrod Taylor and what he's going to bring to the Browns. And, what are your thoughts on that deal on moving on from Tyrod Taylor? I think you kind of saw it coming a little bit that he was going to be gone this season, but, you're transitioning Taylor to a whole new team, I guess you want to say. So what do you think he's going to help with the Browns, and what do you think that does to those moving forward?
So I think between these two trades, both teams won in their own ways. Cleveland upgraded their quarterback situation from last year, obviously. But Buffalo cleared over $10 million in cap space. They got rid of Taylor's contract. And personally, I think it was time for Taylor to move on. As someone who has lived under the Tyrod Taylor era, I understand he's one of the more efficient pass quarterbacks in the league when it comes to not turning the ball over. But let's not forget, he was ranked the worst starting quarterback in the last 3 years. So the last 3 years he started with Buffalo in the fourth quarter when it comes to QB rating. He does not shine in the moments that are – he does not shine in the biggest moments that there is. He's a check-down quarterback. You don't see him throwing the ball vertically. He does 6 to 7 yard check-down passes. And in 2015, with his first year at the Bills, he had only 6 interceptions, but he had 5 fumbles. And then this past year, 4 interceptions, but he had 3 fumbles. So he's a more mobile quarterback, which helped the Bills in different ways, but it also screwed the Bills in different games in the last 3 years. I think that he got great character, great guy. Teammates loved him. The city loved him as a person. As a player, it was time for him to get out of Buffalo. And I think getting the 65th pick from the Browns just adds more to a trade package that Buffalo could potentially make come draft time.
Yeah, I feel like they're a good candidate to move up in the first round if they decide to do so. Because I feel like I feel like they're right now they could be. I think they're clearly the second best team in the AFC East. I mean, you look at. I mean, I don't think it's a really. Adding Teddy Bridgewater to this team isn't going to make them any better. I think they vastly overachieved last year, and I think they're going to kind of fall back a little bit to the pack. And the Dolphins are obviously going through a bit of a transition. They're turning over a good chunk of their roster, especially on defense. I mean, I think the opportunity for the Bills to get back to the playoffs is there. They're clearly a stronger team than they were last year. I mean, are they clearly the second best team in the AFC East?
I think they're competing for the second best team in the East because Miami always gives them trouble every year. Buffalo swept Miami this year, but 2016 Miami swept Buffalo. So I think it's more of a Miami and Buffalo competing for the second place. I think it goes back and forth each year. I think that if, as we like to call him, Big Baller Bean, as Brandon Bean's new nickname, I think if he just positions the Bills very well, and they get the QB that they want, and they continue to make the moves that they can, I think that they're going to secure their spot as the second best in the East and the biggest threat to Tom Brady and the Patriots.
Well, we'll just we'll have to see how that plays out because we're still like the Bills. The Bills, like I said, really as someone who follows the Patriots, we never really worked out tactically. Yeah, he sometimes burn you on those little the play breaks. He finds at the edge and he runs outside, or maybe the hole or lane that opens up in the middle and he just books it for 15 yards, and that was always frustrating. But we never feared Tyrod Taylor. Therefore, we never really feared the Bills really as an opponent. So I think there's still a sizable gap because, I mean, regardless of whether or not, like I said, the Patriots have lost these players, and I think personally that the Solder loss is going to be the biggest of them all. But I want to see what happens going into the draft because you can draft enough linemen, and the loss of Solder isn't going to be that big of a deal. Especially when you have a guy like Marcus Cannon coming back. I personally think that the Bills are the second best team in this division, and I think that they're going to be the ones that give the Patriots the most next year. Just because I feel like they have a bit of confidence building how they last year, getting back to the playoffs and everything like that. And I think obviously the Sean McDermott hire was a good one. He had a few misses, I would say, last year, but I still think he's a pretty good coach, and I think having that defensive front especially is going to be a big advantage for the Bills.
There's no reason why Buffalo should not have a middle-of-the-pack to maybe below 10th overall defense. Sean McDermott runs a perfect scheme that the Bills are used to, especially with players like Jerry Hughes. I just think that they need to bring in. Here's the thing: they're trying to create a strict culture, which I like. Buffalo needs the discipline because if you look at the Rex Ryan era, there was absolutely no discipline. Buffalo was one of the top teams in the league, leading in penalties. This past year, they weren't near that statistic, which I liked. But I think that McDermott also needs to realize that he has an offense that needs to put points up on the board. I like that he's upgrading the defense. I love it. But defense, a majority of the time, is not put points on the board for you. The Bills still need to go after wide receiver depth. Their number one is Kelvin Benjamin, and their number two right now is second-year receiver Zay Jones. I'm hoping that the team brings back wide receiver Jordan Matthews. With the reports of him coming out saying that the Eagles medical staff, they didn't catch some type of ankle or knee injury that he suffered. Buffalo did. That's why he's playing on the IR for the rest of the year. I think you bring back Matthews on a one-year deal just to see what he's really worth because he didn't get to play much last year. And in this league, you need to pass the ball. And if Buffalo's going to go after a quarterback in this draft, they need to surround him with weapons that can get open and set up to make big plays.
Yeah, Brandon, that kind of leads me into my question for you. It's a great segue in terms of Buffalo going after a quarterback in the draft. I liked the A.J. McCarron signing. I think that it allows them, it's a low risk, it's a 2-year deal. It's going to allow Buffalo to see if the quarterback that they draft in April is going to be the real deal. Do you have anybody on your radar screen that you say, this is the ideal guy that I'd really love for Buffalo to be able to snag? Or do you think it could be McCarron under center this year, giving that quarterback a chance to develop, and maybe McCarron showing us a thing or two? Is very highly touted coming out of Cincinnati. A lot of people felt that he could be one of the league's surprise quarterbacks if given the right opportunity. Is Buffalo that right opportunity, and who do you think will be calling signals under center this year?
So when it was first announced that McCarron was signed by Buffalo, a 2-year deal, I thought it was one of the worst things Buffalo could have done, in the moment. But then when I sat back, I relaxed, and I thought about it. There are two things about this McCarron signing. First of all, Brandon Beane was patient. He didn't overpay for McCarron like all these other teams, like Sam Bradford, the Cardinals, 1 year, $20 million, $15 guaranteed. And I'll even bring up Kirk Cousins. While Kirk Cousins is obviously better than McCarron, fully guaranteed contract, the first one in NFL history. We all know that Brandon Beane was not going to do that. Right. So I just think that signing that cheap deal is amazing. And plus, no draft picks were given up as compared to a team who has Nick Foles. It was reported that Buffalo was the one who offered the second-round pick at first for Foles. And I just don't think that Beane wanted to give up that first-round pick. So I think the McCarron signing was good. So this is the way I see it. It's more than likely the Bills are going to trade up into the top 5, potentially top 3. If they get to number two, trading with the New York Giants, they have a shot at Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen. But the only way they get a shot at Darnold is if, let's say, Cleveland goes with Saquon Barkley. If they get to number 3 to Indy, it's more than likely Rosen will fall to there. I just don't see the Giants getting a quarterback. I actually see the Giants getting Eli some help, either on offense or defense. So I think Rosen could fall there. But if you go to number 4 with Cleveland or number 5 with Denver, it's got to be Baker Mayfield or Josh Allen. John Elway, he said that he is in love with Baker Mayfield. And personally, I think and I don't know if you two agree with me on this, I think Baker Mayfield is the best quarterback prospect coming into this draft. I understand that Rosen might be the only day one starter. Darnold, he's got the NFL size that a lot of teams love. Josh Allen's got the strength. He's got the arm strength that a lot of quarterbacks don't have. I think that Mayfield's athleticism, his passion, and his fire that he has makes him the best QB prospect there is. So I think if you get 2 or 3, it's either Darnold or Rosen, or if it's number 4, it's either Mayfield or Allen. Personally, I think that they're going to go all in. They're going to go and get Josh Rosen, and he will be the day one starter, and A.J. McCarron and Nathan Peterman will compete over the backup position.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would say that
as always.
Yeah, I was going to say that'd be quite the haul for the Bills, and and that's that's when excitement and anticipation reaches a fever pitch, and I use that term cautiously because I hate that movie. So anytime I say fever pitch, it brings out just the angst and anger in me that I like to avoid. But
yeah, you're not the only one.
But, yeah, that's awful.
That was not a cinematic masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination. Anyone who's seen it.
No, I can't even watch like Jimmy Fallon today. But it's just I can't do it. Whatever. But like I said, I'm getting distracted there. But no, for Bills fans and Bills themselves, if they swing a deal for one of these top quarterbacks in this draft, I mean, the excitement in Buffalo is like I said, it's going to reach a fever. I mean, they're making moves. They, a lot of these, I guess, fans or whatever, they anticipate the Patriots run to end somewhat soon. They're looking at, okay, they have an opportunity to kind of wedge themselves in there in that in the running for the AFC East, and who knows, in a couple of years maybe they're sitting on top with Field or Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen or whoever. So I mean, you never know, and I think this is definitely an exciting time for Bills fans. And I do, before we let you go, Brandon, I do kind of want to get your opinion on. Me and Mike and I joked about the Sammy Watkins contract that he signed with the Chiefs, and it's just I don't know. I think Sammy Watkins is a talented player, but I mean, 3 years, $48 million for what? You know what I'm saying? So I kind of want to get your thoughts, having known Sammy Watkins for his brief stint in Buffalo.
Watkins is a dynamic player down the field. He absolutely is. When he is available and he's healthy, he's a true playmaker that a lot of teams could benefit from, especially going into a Kansas City offense that's now going to have Patrick Mahomes as the starter. Patrick Mahomes should have the field day this year with Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, and Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt in the backfield. That's a dangerous offense. Personally, it could be one of the top offenses in the league. But the problem is that Watkins has had so many injuries since day one of being drafted by Buffalo, number 4 overall in 2014, that this contract could easily come back and fire back on Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's a high-risk, high-reward deal for Kansas City. They get their number 2 receiver maybe built to number 1, but I just think that if he cannot stay healthy, it's gonna haunt Kansas City, especially that type of money. I understand from a talent perspective, maybe he's worth it, but with the injury he suffered, whether it was his back, his foot, his knee, anything that he has suffered through, it can easily hurt the Chiefs because he's very fragile. That's the reputation he has.
I think the wild card in all this is Patrick Mahomes. For a while now, we've obviously associated the Chiefs with Andy Reid and Alex Smith, and obviously Alex Smith is now officially a Washington Redskin, although he's been a Redskin since the Super Bowl pretty much. But so there is that excitement because they're going to be a team. I mean, speed is one of those things that really it catches people's eyes, and for better or worse. Sometimes it works out, and other times you kind of get drawn to the speed aspect. Fast a team can be, but you could be fast and not be that talented. Really, you know what I mean? So, certainly have the talent, like you said. I mean, if Watkins can stay on the field, I think he's going to be a great weapon for Mahomes. But it seems like a lot of money. But then again, I don't make $48 million over 3 years, so my concept of how much that actually is it might be off a little bit. I make a little less than that, and by a little, I mean a lot. But
and the last thing I want to say about the quarterback situation in Buffalo, since Jim Kelly, the Bills' greatest quarterback of all time, there's been 16 different quarterbacks for Buffalo. It's time to bring in their next Jim Kelly, time to bring in the next guy who's going to lead them to the promised land. Going back to Tyrod Taylor, like we said, he's a great guy. He's an above average player. I'll give him that. That's the highest I'll go. Taylor's not the type of guy to lead you to the promised land. And even though the Bills just made the playoffs for the first time this millennial, McDermott needs to find that quarterback to get them into conference championship, maybe potentially the Super Bowl in the next couple of years. So overall, the Bills need to make a splash in this draft. Whoever they draft, it better be the right one, especially if they trade up, because if it's not, there's going to be hell to pay.
Well, thank you, Brandon, always for joining us. It's always fun talking football and Bills, and I have a feeling we're going to be doing this upcoming season, especially with some of the moves this Bills team is making. You can follow Brandon on Twitter. It's at Brandon_Ray79. And again, thank you, Brandon, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate coming on here and giving my input, giving Bills fans a little hope for the upcoming season.
Definitely, Brandon. You always put out great content. We definitely appreciate it. Ian and I have not forgotten about putting you through a table either. I just wanted to throw that out there. You might have thought you dodged that bullet, but you truly did not. We'll wait toward training camp and the regular season for those discussions. But no, all kidding aside, thanks for coming on this morning, Bud, and take care. Have a great weekend.
You guys have a great day.
All right, take care. That was, once again, that was Brandon Ray. He is our managing editor for FPC Bills. And, again, you can find him on Twitter. It's at Brandon_Ray79. It's been a great show so far, Mike. We're winding down here. I like I said, I'm waiting for some breaking news. I really have. I want to break some news for you guys. But, unfortunately, nothing yet. The best thing I have read today is that running back Jeremy Hill is going to be visiting with the Patriots apparently. So that could be an interesting match for the team. But we'll jump back on the Patriots real quick because obviously there was people lining up at the Tobin, as you say, on Tuesday, wondering what the hell was going on with this team when.
Yeah.
Now you kind of see some of the things that they obviously they traded for Danny Shelton, which was a good move. Losing Nate Soldier is going to hurt, but you got to remember that Adrian Waddle is still a candidate to come back. They're going to get Marcus Cannon back, and I really like the move to bring in Jason McCourty. I mean, I know it's something that kind of do. It feels like for a couple of years now. Last year he was a free agent. Time the Patriots were pretty stacked at the cornerback position, so there really wasn't a need for him. Now we got the McCourty twins, and I think
absolutely.
I think he's going to be a really good second, third cornerback depending on how it shakes out in training camp next to Stephon Gilmore. I mean, I think he automatically comes in and upgrades the secondary, and now you're looking at a grouping of cornerbacks with Gilmore, McCourty, Eric Rowe, Jonathan Jones, and Johnson Batamosi, and of course Cyrus Jones, who a lot of people have forgotten about. But I mean, he's going into a season where he's got something. He's coming off a pretty big injury. This is a make or break year for him, and I happen to still kind of believe in him. So it's an interesting secondary group for the Patriots, and I think it's certainly shaping up to be a pretty strong group, to be honest with you. And I think, I think it's just you got to sit back and wait and watch this team do what they do. And you see some of these other visits coming in. You have Adrian Claiborne is coming in for a visit, the defensive Atlanta, who led the Falcons here in sacks, I believe, with 9.5. Him coming in for a visit, and that would be another really good signing for this team. And and you mentioned earlier in the show, I mean, you listed off several players that are game-changing impact players that are going to be coming off that the Patriots lost last year from injury. Edelman, Hightower, the undermentioned Derek Rivers, who was brought in as
absolutely
as the Patriots' first selection in last year's draft to be the edge guy and to help add a little athleticism to the defensive front or the front seven. So, for the Patriots, it's, last year seemed to make everyone forget about how they usually attack free agency. They were shocked when all of a sudden, like a player that they hadn't been linked to at all, they signed on the first day to a mega contract, and I'm talking about Stephon Gilmore. So, so obviously all of a sudden now people believe, that's how the Patriots operate, and it's really not. So, to sit there and watch them, kind of sit back and not do much on that first, quote, I'm using my air quotes here, first day of free agency, i.e. the last day of legal tampering. It's not really that alarming. You see this team just, it's unfortunate to see Danny Amendola go, but the reality of it is, he's a 33-year-old, maybe fifth receiver on this team at best, when you think about the talent that's already on this team. Like I say, it's just one of those things that this is a long process. And it doesn't end with free agency. If anything, it's just the beginning. So, I like where the Patriots are at. I like some of the guys that they're bringing in for visits. I can kind of see where they're looking in terms of how they're going to attack the rest of free agency. And I think we both agree draft a tackle with their first pick.
I absolutely agree with that. I think that I think Adrian Waddle coming back is going to be a big factor for this team. I mean, a lot of people have mentioned, what are they going to do? Who's going to protect Tom Brady's blind side? And, that they didn't plan for the future. Well, in a way, they kind of did. They tried to draft Antonio Garcia last year. And obviously, no one could foresee what happened with him, with the blood clots in the lungs and all the health problems that he had overall. So now they kind of have to adjust a little bit. The guys that I have my eyes on, obviously pie in the sky. I think they may have to trade up to do it. Not sure if they're going to do it. But the two guys that would really be hand-in-glove fits for the Patriots would be Connor Williams out of Texas and Mike McGlinchey out of Notre Dame. I mean, those are the two guys that I'm really kind of looking at right now as saying, you know what, as a left tackle, they would be welcome with open arms in New England and could come in and be impact players right off the bat. Not sure how much that would, be a possibility, but it's worth it to throw out there. I definitely think it's a little bit of a lofty goal, but that's what I would love to see. Another question I've gotten a lot this week is about I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say before you move, I just want to throw another name out there. Colton Miller, the UCLA left tackle, is another guy that I like, 6'9". He's kind of in that big frame mold of a guy like Nate Solder. Those are the kind of things that when you kind of project what the Patriots are going to do at that position, you kind of look at the history. You look at Sebastian Vollmer, you look at Nate Solder, Matt Light, big guys on that left side that are going to be there to protect Tom Brady, and he's one of those guys that could be available there at 31. So that's a guy I'd like to throw in the mix, but. You were gonna
I think so too. That's another great. That's obviously definitely a great fit. So there are guys that they can use in the draft to fill that hole. A lot of people have been asking me this week, well, why don't they just move Marcus Cannon to left tackle? Well, there's a lot of reasons why you don't want to do that. I think Cannon has finally settled into his position. I don't think you want to start moving him around. He's really become an impact player on the offensive line, but he's very comfortable where he is. I don't think that moving him to left tackle is necessarily going to be what they're going to do. He's played it throughout his career. I don't think it's ever really gone well. So I think right now that if you leave Marcus Cannon on the right side, I think that's where he gives you the best impact, the best value, and the best effort, and I think that's where he's going to stay. So that to me is what I look at going forward with the New England Patriots. You mentioned the McCourty trade earlier, and I think it's brilliant. When I saw the move yesterday, I was like, okay, that's a good move. I like it. And then I sat and I actually thought about it and I read about it. And I think really this may be one of the more unsung moves of the offseason for the New England Patriots. And I'll give you two reasons why I think that it's a very, very brilliant move. First of all, I like trading for him even though he was going to be cut. I think what that does is it allows the Patriots to bring him in with no guaranteed money. By trading for him, first of all, you keep him off the open market. It could have been a team that might have just come in and blown him away with an offer. I don't think that would have happened, but it's possible. And then you lose the player. I think what it does is it allows you, first of all, to bring him in, but it allows you to bring him in with no guaranteed money. If McCourty had hit the open market, even if his only intention was to sign with the Patriots, there would have been some sort of signing bonus, guarantee included in the deal. So I think what happens is you bring him in, you do move down a little bit in the draft. I think they moved from, 205 to 219 overall.
Yeah,
you get
like 14,
a potential starter at this point on a contract with really no risk. This is a Belichickian move. This is the one where he had his Jeff Daniels moment on Dumb and Dumber, where he totally redeems himself.
Yeah.
Most of the fans are not going to agree. They're not going to see that. They're going to look at it and say, "Yeah, but we lost Danny. Yeah, but we lost Nate. Yeah, but we lost Malcolm. Yeah, but we lost Dion." Give it a chance. It's a process. Take a step back. Take a deep breath. And take a look at what the team is doing. I don't think fans are going to be disappointed once the season begins. That's my soapbox.
Well, no, and I to even add to that point, it was a great point, by the way. He's Jason McCourty. Like, Devin McCourty is a very highly respected player on this team and a leader on this team. And I think just bringing that family even more to this team, I think is going to do wonders. Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, even for guys on that team, to lose a guy like Danny Amendola or, Nate Solder or any of those guys, Dion, and, right down the list, Malcolm Butler as well. So, I think bringing in a guy that is, I would imagine, is pretty familiar with a lot of those guys, given the fact that Devin has been with the Patriots for the entirety of his career. And, we've seen at recent bowl celebrations where Jason has been there as well. So, I think it's just on many levels a very, very good move for the Patriots. It kind of, it balances things out a little bit where everyone was like, kind of, well, not, I don't want to say everyone, like I said, there's a segment of fans that really kind of get a little bit too emotional when it comes to certain moves like that. Like when like as for the week, I don't think it's really expected Dion. It's nice to have Dion Lewis. I think we both kind of like he was going to price himself out of the market and of the Patriots market, and that's exactly what happened. And good for him. I mean, he deserves it. I mean, that's the thing. It's like there's no, these guys aren't going to come back. If we play Tennessee, I mean, Dion Lewis and Malcolm Butler are going to get standing ovations. They're not going to get booed or jeered or anything like that. These guys are, and they were. For all, for the most part, they're perfect Patriots. They came in, they did their job, they made big, impactful plays, and they were fun to watch. So, change is always tough in any part of life. So seeing some fan favorite players leave is always tough for any team. For any, you look at, like we mentioned, Packers fans losing their minds over losing Jordy Nelson, and obviously it stings, but when you watch a team like the Patriots and some of these other really good teams that, year in and year out, it's like, that they're going to, you're going to find the next guy that's going to step up and be the next fan favorite. You remember how angry people were that we threw all that money, or the Patriots threw all that money at Danny Amendola after they just let Wes Welker walk away. And, we saw what happened. They won 2 Super Bowls with Danny Amendola and none with Wes Welker. So you never really know how it's going to play out. You just got to see it play out. And I think, I think the Patriots are in a good spot. The Jason McCourty move is great. They have, unlike last year, they have, I believe, 6 picks in the top 100. So they have a lot of draft ammunition. And that's really, for a team that is kind of on the edge when it comes to salary cap space, that's really where you're going to see them make an impact because they're cost-controlled young players. And, like I said, I would not be surprised to see them in the second round take a quarterback. You know what I mean? It's just something that they would do. You would think, okay, they're going to do offensive linemen, defensive linemen. And like I said, I do think that they're going to take an offensive lineman first overall. And then, it wouldn't surprise me if they kind of out of the blue take a quarterback and then go or something like that. So, like I said, there's a lot to it, and this is an exciting part of the year as we get ready and approach a new season coming up in just 6 short months. So we're getting there. Yep. We're getting there. But because it is, as you know, it is 3/16, which means it is Stone Cold Steve Austin Day. And I think as we're wrapping up this show here, and we've talked, exclusively about NFL free agency. I want you to give me your favorite Stone Cold Steve Austin moment. Tell for all of our wrestling fans out there, and I know not everyone that listens to us is a wrestling fan, but Mike and I are, or we were. So deal with it. So.
Well, I think the people that are listening to us are probably agreeing or nodding their head in agreement. In terms of Austin, I mean, the rivalry with Vince McMahon was just, I think it was the heyday and just the pinnacle of wrestling and being a fan. And I remember going to some of those events. I actually have a couple of different ones that I'll share with you. My personal favorite Stone Cold Steve Austin moment was a live event back in, I want to say it was back in, I think, 99 or 1998, one of the two, where Mick Foley won the world title in Worcester, Massachusetts. And this was it was a live tape. It was a delay taping, actually, of Raw.
WCW.
And,
they ruined it.
There was a moment where the glass broke and Austin came out, and to this day, that is the loudest I've ever heard an arena in my life. It's an indoor arena, obviously. I'm not counting outdoor arenas, but for an indoor arena, that place, if there was a roof, it would have blown off the Worcester Centrum that night. It was as loud as I've ever heard an arena go. All the signs pointed to Austin not being there that night, and it goes to show you the popularity that guy had among wrestling fans. And it blew the doors off, and it was amazing when he came out, nailed The Rock with a chair, and Mick Foley went on to win the world title. From a pure viewership standpoint, I would say him hitting Vince McMahon with the bedpan and in the vignette where he's in the hospital was hilarious. My personal favorite is the beer truck. I think that was the that and the Zamboni. I mean, him driving these things to the ring was just, you wanted to see what he was going to come out with and what he was going to do every single week. It was appointment television. Even to the point where my dad used to love to watch it, and it was a lot of fun, and just seeing that. So, thanks for the memories, Steve. He's another one that does an amazing podcast all the time, and is still as entertaining as ever. But great stuff, great memories, man.
Well, it's funny because the first memory you talked about, I remember that because I was of the many that heard about the result of that match before it actually happened, because if you remember on I believe it was on Nitro, they ruined they spoiled the ending of it, so this that goes back, like I said, we're dating ourselves here a little bit, but my favorite is a bit of a personal one as well, and it comes from your stomping grounds there in Providence. So when I was a kid in high school, I'd go to a bunch of these shows and all that, and I happened to go to, they had a live Raw in Providence, and then a SmackDown taping the next night in Boston. So I went to both shows. So I was at the Raw, and this was leading up to the Invasion pay-per-view. I believe this was in 2002. And the whole build-up was of Vince McMahon trying to get the old Steve Austin back and everything like that. So like this whole show during Raw, it just kept cutting to footage of him. I wish I could remember, but it was a local bar in Providence, and he was just sitting around like,
it's the Friendly Tap in Cumberland, Rhode Island, and I've been by it. Actually, one of my childhood best friend, who's like a brother to me, Paul Abello, and I actually went to the Friendly Tap one night to go in, and it's pretty much what you saw on the screen. It's unbelievable. We saw the pool tables, and that place got wrecked on a number of occasions, but it was always great. I didn't want to steal your thunder there, but I know the bar you're talking about.
No, I'm glad like that. I just couldn't remember the name, and at the second you saw it, I was like, yes, that's exactly. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for being there. But anyways, I was at that show. I was sitting in, and I remember towards the end of the show, you had all the WCW and ECW, quote unquote guys, because obviously we all know it was just one big company. Those guys, and then the WWE guys fighting in the ring, and it was just a huge melee, and all of a sudden, like you said, I mean, there's nothing more exhilarating than hearing that glass break, and that's why I thought it was appropriate to start the show with it. But you hear that glass break, and it's like, I've never heard, like you said with the show in Worcester, I've never heard an indoor stadium be as loud as I heard it then, because, I mean, the roof literally just flew off that place as he went storming down, talking to himself, got the scowl on, it's all that stuff, the whole shtick, the whole thing. he's walking down, strutting down to the ring. He gets into the ring, and he's stunning guy after guy. Next thing you know, the ring is cleared, and you have, Austin and the Undertaker, and I think maybe Kurt Angle was in there too. So, I mean, it was an exciting moment, and that's how the show ended, with his music playing and you drinking beers and all the ECW and WCW guys just, laying on the ground. And yeah, it was fun. Like I said, I mean, that's it was a good time to be that age watching those shows and going to those shows, and Austin was definitely a big part of that, because it was fun. I mean, how can you go wrong? When Uncle came out, and obviously, and I was playing
What?
that over and over again, and
it's hilarious that you brought. It's hilarious that you brought that up. I remember McMahon, leaving the beer in the middle of the ring. That I want the old Stone Cold. That whole as only Vince could cut the promo that he did. So interesting. You gotta wonder if Vince is going to bring back the XFL, if some of that stuff's going to find its way in. He said he's not, but he's going to put that stuff in there. I mean, that there's going to be some sort of WWE it's just got to be. It's too much in his bloodstream for him to ignore it, I think.
I'll tell you what, because I just thought of this now. I got the perfect new play-by-play guy for the Monday Night Football. Good old JR. Bring him in. Let him call some football games, and let him call it the way he knows how to call it, because man. I would just listening to Monday Night Football with Jim Ross calling the game. I don't care who the hell they put in as color commentator. It doesn't.
It really doesn't matter. At that point, they're just passenger anyway. The JR's driving the bus at that point.
No, and like I'm really not like I'm like half joking, but really I'm serious. Like, the guy is one of the, we all know him from calling wrestling and all that stuff. But I mean, the guy is if anyone could really encompass the emotion of football and how big of a stage Monday Night Football is, I feel like he would be the guy. I mean, I doubt it would never happen. I can't see.
Yeah, I mean, he could do it. He can call football. I mean, I've heard him call football games. He did a couple for the XFL when in their first run. I think where Vince kind of lost his way when it came to that is I think he relied on theatrics too much too early, and I think it became a punchline, and it became an easy way for the press to kind of pigeonhole everything. If he can come out and show that, we're willing to focus on football first and then try to incorporate some of that stuff, who knows? He might be able to catch lightning in a bottle. I mean, you never really know for sure. It's going to be tough competing with the NFL. I know they've taken some hits this year. I know that there's viewership is down and fans are fed up, and I know there's a lot going on there. But I think it's going to be very difficult for them to compete. But Vince is not a guy that is willing to take no for an answer. I mean, everybody had the WWE or the WWF at the time. They were ready to start administering the last rites, and then look what happened. He ended up buying his competition, and
exactly.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun to see.
No, and if it's half as fun as what this show was, then I'll be happy. So, Mike, it's been a pleasure. We talked a lot of football, and I we have plenty more to talk about. I wish we had another 2 hours, but unfortunately we do not. So we are going to have to wrap this today's show up, and we do want to once again thank both Sam Smith and Brandon Ray for coming on the show once again. They're both great guests, and we definitely look forward to having them both on. Remember, you can we'll have this podcast up. If you missed the show, you can listen to it. It's going to be up on iTunes. It'll obviously be up on our website, fullpresscoverage.com/radio. You can get right to the radio page. And you can also check out our great podcast. We didn't get a chance to talk about it today, but we did add one more to our network. It's the Bleeding we have the Hardwood Green podcast, and we also have Bleeding Green podcast, which is a Jets-based podcast. So go ahead, check it out. The first episode's up there. We're going to be posting another episode of the Rampage Radio podcast this afternoon, so keep an eye out for that. And as always, you can follow us on Twitter. It's at Full Press Radio, and then, of course, at FPC_NFL. My Twitter handle is at IGLEN31, and then, of course, my fantastic co-host is at MDABATEFPC, and we will see you guys all next week. So, Mike, you have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely, Ian. You too. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Also, a happy St. Patrick's Day to all the sons and daughters of Ireland out there, and happy St. Joseph's Day coming up to all the sons and daughters of Italy as well. It's a big day up in the Northeast, so definitely enjoy the weekend, and if you're going to do any partying, be safe, everybody.
Always. And with that, we will see you all next week.
Oh, hell yeah.
Welcome to Total Wine and More. It's much more than a wine store. It's the 8th wonder of the world.
When people talk about Total Wine and More, they get a little carried away. We're just a big, friendly place run by people with a passion for wine, beer, and spirits.
8,000 different wines, 2,500 different beers, 3,000 spirits, and friendly, helpful experts at every turn.
You know what? Maybe we are the 8th wonder of the world.
Shop in store or online at TotalWine.com.
Finish what you started and earn your degree with innovative education, including flexible, online, and accelerated learning options. Degrees from Rasmussen College allow you to continue living your life while getting a high-quality education. We offer more than 50 programs, and we're here to help bridge the connection between business and technology skills across careers to prepare for today's workforce. Bring it home and see where it takes you. Learn more at rasmussen.edu.